Great. Well, welcome everyone. I'm so pleased to welcome you to the first beginner class on human design. My name is Rebecca Jolli. I found human design a little over 4 years ago in an MBT, My Big Toe meditation group from a lovely woman who is now my mentor and friend, Mariana Ludischer in Budapest, Hungary. And it blew our minds. We were just like, whoa, didn't know, started looking into it. I'm a manifesting generator, so I pretty soon started drinking from the fire hose of human design because there is a lot there. There's an awful lot there. So, um, I've been studying ever since. I'm past the midpoint of my deconditioning, and I am starting to feel that things are picking up and moving in a proper direction. And this class is one of the signs of that, that I finally am making the shift or beginning to be able to make the shift from freak into potentially genius. So we'll see. You tell me, you be the judge. So, before I let you do the introductions, I wanted to do just a quick little bit of a neutrino reading. So I'll get into explaining what neutrinos are and how they work and how they affect human design. But just so you know, we're living in a sea of neutrinos. They're everywhere. The same neutrinos that imprint on us at our birth are also everywhere all the time. And I am taking this year a tracking of neutrinos every day. So today's neutrino transit is quite an interesting one, and I wanted to briefly share it with you. Some of the energies that are here in the universe supporting us for this class. First of all, the cross that we're in now is the clarion, and this happens to be the same cross of Ra Uruhu, the guy who received this information in his initial transmission. So we're in the cross of basically the missionary, the bell that's meant to ring across the world with good news. How auspicious, yes? Let's see. We have an investigative energy going on. We have the energy of trial and error, the energy of persuasion, material direction. And whenever he says material, he means money. Through power of persuasion, the power of persuasion to form a community and integrate people. Success by education. How nice is that? Willpower and vitality in crisis to face challenges. Utilization by intuitive problem solving, ending of conflicts, taking stock of what causes hardships, transformative crisis, the quality of practical, valuable ideas. That's a nice little one supporting us now. Foundational creative contributions, sensibility to withstand shock, and cautious pragmatic philanthropy. So there we go. We have all kinds of beautiful energy supporting us today. All right, first I want to say this is going to be giving us similar kinds of information that come out of what Ra designed as the basic human design class. He called it a live your design class. But I'm going to be teaching the class differently, and I'm going to have a different structure to the class. And so I'm not calling it live your design. Uh, I'm just calling it basic human design. I have a reason for that. And the reason is I'm not raw, and I can't really function in the same way that he did. And I understand why he set it up the way he did. Raw teaches classes, or taught, he's dead now, with a sort of a shock and awe kind of a theme. And his idea was, if we shock the people into realizing just how messed up they are, then they'll just go, oh, let me concentrate on how to fix it. And I think that our times and who we are now is maybe ready for a little bit more of a gentle and nuanced approach. So instead of doing the shock and awe campaign and starting off with, okay, let's focus on the broken and then work on how to fix it, I'm just going to be giving a teaching of how human design works in general. So there is another difference there, because there's two ways to go about human design. There's the way of going about human design where you're teaching people about themselves within the context of human design. And then there's the way where you're teaching human design as a system. And then we can talk about ourselves as examples or look to what's going on with ourselves that way. And that is more the way that I'm doing it. So I have no problem answering personal questions and talking about what the deal is with, with this and that. And I don't understand how this works. But it's more of a focus on learning human design as a system. So it's a systematic approach, and I'm going to be attempting to do more of an as above, so below holistic look at human design rather than saying, okay, here's how people get conditioned and messed up by what's going on in the world. I'll explain that, but it's not my focus because I don't think that anybody who truly wants to learn about human design at this point is needing this big shock factor. It was a part of his design, just in case you're interested. We also have this part of design in Sergio, and I don't think Heather has it. There may be, I haven't seen all the charts for everybody who's here today. I tried, but it just didn't happen in time, so I can't tell you right off everyone who has this channel. But the channel is composed of, on one side in the ego center, the gate of shock or competition, wanting to be first. Ra very much wanted to be first. And on the other side, innocence. So you have innocence meeting shock, and when they meet in the middle, you have initiation, or what Ra calls a quantum, which is you're creating something that's bigger than the sum of its parts. And human design does that in general, because every place where you have a channel, you have two definitions on the gates of either end of that channel, but when they come together, they're actually making something that's different and more. So let's see. I'm teaching the system, shock and awe, the whole, as above, so below. Okay. Ah, yes, yes, yes. Okay. So when Ra received human design, he received it in a, a bubble, in one big blob that came down upon him. He says he learned human design from the bottom up. And it's impossible for us to learn it that way unless we take a lot of shrooms, I guess, or have some sort of mystical, magical experience. Um, how it has to be taught to us is from the top down. And so I don't think anybody who's here, except for maybe Surin, has any real awareness of what's going on at the bottom of human design. That's really, really deep. That's where I'm studying now. And it's just levels beyond. We're not even going to touch that in what we're talking about today, because we are going to begin from the top down. What is a center? What is a channel? What is a gate? Just looking at the body graph, real basic beginnings so that we can understand what it is that's composing us. But the reason I tell you this is because Ra taught human design, and if you've ever watched any of Ra's videos on human design, you will probably be aware of the fact that he talked in circles. He taught it like this. It wasn't pedagogic at all. He was a lovely teacher, in terms of a speaker, I should say, a lovely speaker, very charismatic, very interesting to listen to. But if you ask him to speak, say, on the nature of the 21st gate, he might include something about motivation. He might talk about bases. He might talk about planets. He's going to be talking about everything all at once. And it's interesting that way, but it's not pedagogic. It's not a great way to teach people. I think a better way to teach is to have a support structure, to have something that's very logical, consistent. Many people nowadays are logical in their thought process or are trying to be logical in their thought processes because this is what society is supporting nowadays. Um, so a really good example of this is the basic manual for human design, which is written by Linda Bonnell. If anyone has not heard of this book, this is the main basic book. I tell anyone who's interested in really diving into human design, this is the book. This is where you start. This is the best thing I've got as far as reference. There are a lot of other books out there and more all the time about human design. But Linda Bunnell actually studied with Ra for something like 20 years. Human Design by Linda Bunnell. This is the book that I recommend. This is the book that will take you through and give you the really best uh, beginning overview, in my opinion. It should take you months to get through this book, and it is the unofficial manual that will be supporting what we're doing here in this class. You don't have to have it, but if you do have it, it would actually be quite helpful because when I say, okay, next time we're doing channels, you can look up the section on channels and read in a very pedagogic manner because even though Ra was not the greatest step-by-step teacher, Linda Bunnell has us covered. So there's that. Oh, and I might as well talk about what I am wanting to give you as assignments for the next class. If you have not already done these things, please do them before next week so they can form a part of your basic understanding of where we're going. The first one, if anyone has actually had a reading with me, they will already be familiar with these pieces of homework, is to watch the video called I think it's called Encounter with the Voice. It's on YouTube, it's free. It's like an hour and 45 minutes or something. It's Ra himself telling his story. And it's a lovely story. I've heard several versions of it, but that's a good one. Yes, and I can actually put that into the chat here. Okay, to watch. Encounter with the Voice by Ra. Okay, there we go. And there's another video that I would like you to watch, and that's called The Egg. It's a very small video. It's only like 8 minutes or so. It's animated. Um, 8 minute animated video. Because Ra often talks about the universe being an egg. And this does a really good job of explaining it and also explaining some of my motivations in what I'm doing in human design because I have this perspective of us all being really connected on one level. And we're all trying to rise up and evolve a as a planetary consciousness together. Now's our time. Let's work together. We don't have any room for hating anyone. We all matter. All colors, all shapes, all sizes, all the animals, all the plants, all the rocks. Ra even received a design for rocks. He said he was a what was it? He was a teacher of form principle. So he said he received the actual designs of everything from rocks to insects, birds, reptiles, mammals, the whole kit and caboodle. But human design is the one that makes money after all. So that's really the important one. So let's see here. Yes, and the other thing for homework is if you have not already gone to 64keys.com, you will need to go there and sign up and get a free account and put in your information and start researching your design. Human design is mechanics. Human design, part of what makes it work is that it's not fluffy. It's not airy-fairy. It's not okay, I can't say it's not airy-fairy because there are some parts of it that are a little but generally speaking, human design is a mechanical system. You can look at it like an electronic circuit board of the body. How is the electricity flowing in your body? What are the effects of electricity being in a place or not being in a place in a consistent manner? And we have two ways that energy works in our bodies. When we're born, we receive an imprint, a neutrino imprint, Actually, we receive a natal one and a prenatal one, or if we're looking at it backwards, this and this. But what you'll see on the right side of your human design chart, that stack of numbers that looks very confusing, that is your conscious imprint. And on the other side, the orange numbers, you will see that there's an imprint of your actual avatar, of the vehicle that you're in. And so these two imprints are in sort of a forced marriage, they call it. So they're kind of working together, but not really. And so there's a lot of different kinds of things going on with the energy. But once you understand how that energy is moving and what's going on when those energies are going on, you see it's electricity. If we're a split definition, if we have two separate areas of energy running in our bodies, they want to connect. And we're not going to be feeling okay until we connect. And we're going to be choosing people in our lives, thinking with our big brains that it's because, oh, I like them, they're so nice. But actually, is it an electrical connection that's being made? And if it's not, then we have one of these things where, oh, they're nice, but I just didn't feel the spark. That spark is the electromagnetics that are happening when we meet people. And every time I do a joint reading for people, I can see that other person is making their energy run in a coherent fashion together. And if you have a single definition, this is the person in the partnership who's much more able to function alone and without a partner. So I definitely also see that in my relationship with Surin. I'm a single definition, much more able to just do me. I'm fine. I like him. I love him. You know, we got a lovely thing going on. But when I'm gone, he's feeling something, a kind of a lack that I don't really feel in the same way. And we all have those kinds of dynamics going on. Of course, we also have different levels of conditioning that happen from our natal families, from our schools, teachers, all the outward authority figures that have been telling us ever since we were young children of how we should be. Why can't you be like this? You need to be like this. Sit still and pay attention. All these things have been training us out of who we actually are. And in order to become happy, we got to be who we are. But the problem until human design has been, and how do you know who that is? You could spend a whole lifetime figuring out the hard way who you are, and then, for fuck's sake, you die. So it's much better to figure it out the easy way by looking at a little picture, learning a code, a language. Human design has a special language. So we talk about the not self, we talk about channels and gates and lines and hexagrams and chops and all this sort of thing, because what we're doing is we're having in human design a synthesis, which is a coming together, melding, and an upgrading of many ancient wisdom systems. And that's part of what's so cool about it. Because if you've already been studying astrology of any kind, then you're already a leg up on human design. If you had any experience with the I Ching, you already kind of know something that's going on. The other ones, I see the influences, but I don't actually see how, like, for example, being an expert in the Kabbalah is really going to add a lot. What's coming out of the Kabbalah is more this structure of centers connected by energetic lines running between them. So that's what we've got there. Let's see, what is it I want to do? Yes. Okay, so we'll be talking about cycles. We'll be talking about patterns. There are patterns that are inherent in what we do, patterns in our bodies, different patterns for energy flow. I don't know if you've heard of the issue of circuitry, but the colored lines that connect those colored shapes in our body graph are all part of bigger circuits. It really is like electricity. And so you have to study it on all these different levels, but you see after a while that they have connections. There's definitely an as above, so below kind of character to the nature of what's going on with all of our energy. But an important thing to know is overall, we're here on the planet to go to school, to learn. This is a virtual reality system. It's a virtual trainer. It's a game, if you will, except in contrast to, say, what's the game? Sim City, for example. That's a really good example because it's a game of life. Uh, it has rules. It's computed by a computer, whereas our reality is computed by consciousness itself. However, it's a really good analogy for the way shit is working. So we can look at what's happening in human design and in our lives and say, well, just imagine it's a video game. We're players in the video game. Wouldn't it be much easier to win the game if we knew the rules? And this is one big hack to learn the rules. And for all of you who have ones in your profile, if you know what a profile is, if you don't know, that's fine. We pretty much all of us have ones in our charts somewhere. I think Betty might be an exception. I think she has zero. Is it ones or fours? I don't know. We'll get into it. But except for rare exceptions like that, we all have a little bit of everything. And that's kind of what's happening in our body graphs. We all have everything, just not all the time. And the things that we do have all the time are the things on which we can rely as people and the things which we should rely. That's what we're trying to learn when we're deconditioning, when we're becoming ourselves in human design. We're learning how to sit down and really accept who we are and to fall in love with who we are. What a beautiful idea. So it means my job is to fall in love with you, each of you, and to help you fall in love with yourself. And it's one of those oxygen mask in the airplane kinds of situations because when you have put on your own oxygen mask, i.e., attained a level of self-love that gives you the courage to be yourself in spite of social pressure and conditioning, then we can turn and begin to love other people. How beautiful. This is how we change the world. Uh, I hate to break it to you, we're not actually going to be changing the world by protests and politics and elections ever. We don't do that. We change the entire world by changing ourselves. So this is my radical revolutionary act to say, I don't even want to look at all that. It doesn't even matter. The most important thing in the world is for me to fix me. And once I feel good about who I am, let's work on fixing you. And let that love and energy spread out until we're all loving and supporting each other, because this kind of love spreading through the world is what is going to fix it. There is no amount of money that's going to fix it because we already have all the money that we need. There's no amount of technology that's going to fix it because we already have all the technology this planet needs. We have the hacks. We have permaculture, we have all the smart people, we have scientists, we have experiments running, all these magical things happening. If we could just get on the same page and realize everybody needs to be supported, everybody needs to eat, everybody needs to be safe, everybody needs to grow and be who they are. We are all essential pieces of this puzzle, and we're all unique pieces of this puzzle. So human design is a system both complicated enough to let us understand the intricacies of our uniqueness and also general enough for us to be able to just look at one picture and say, once we know the code, oh, I see who you are. Let me meet you on your level. Let's treat generators, or as 64 Keys calls them, builders. Let's treat them as builders. Let's let them be them. Let's support everybody being who they actually are, because we all have an actual real place where we belong. How nice is that? None of us are extra pieces. None of us are, what do they call it? A junk DNA. There is no junk DNA. It's all our DNA. It's the DNA of this planet. We're all itty bitty pieces of the planet Earth, standing up for a minute, looking around and going, wow. And then going back down into the fabric of the planet itself. So if you ever feel like you're separated from everyone, I'm all alone here, it's the nature of who you are that it's impossible. You can't. And this leads to another of Ra's really important teachings, and that is that we do not have choice. Now, I know there's this huge controversy going on about choice versus no choice, and everybody feels like, oh, I have a choice. I know when I go to the grocery store, I chose that. I'll give you that what we have is the illusion of choice. But once you start to learn about your design, you start to see that all the things that you thought were your choices in your life are actually results of how the energy is running in your body and the conditioning that has been placed upon you ever since you were 6 months old inside of your mother's womb. And before that, you were nothing but a bag of meat and juice. So, human design also gives us information about this whole abortion issue that everybody's all got their panties in a twist about lately. So we'll get there later. Let's see. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, a lovely quote by Ra. You are unique. You have no choice. Love yourself. It's kind of really all we're left with is to figure out who we are, sit down in that, be it, and then allow the flow of life to carry us where it will. Because once we have the amount of trust to give our lives to the universe, so to speak, we start to see, oh, the universe has my back. What do you know? Oh, how beautiful is that? And I can definitely attest that is happening. It is mind-blowing. It is so cool. So we'll talk to the generators a little bit about how to access that in themselves on a moment-to-moment basis. We'll talk about the coordinators and how they really need to look at their color, their motivation, and begin to, in the case, since we have three coordinators here today, for coordinators, it is a matter of learning to accumulate consistent energy. So write that down. Think about that. Coordinators are meant to accumulate consistent energy. Coordinators are not for everyone. They are the people who are moving into the future, who are supposed to be the leaders of the planet by being in positions to guide and direct others, because our coordinators have the ability to see inside the mass of humanity. They're the ones who are supposed to be looking at humanity and telling us what to do. So in order to do that, they have to know, who are my people to guide? If they are directors on the stage of life, they need to know who's in their play, because there's a lot of plays going on, and not every projector or coordinator is meant to coordinate everyone. So it's a puzzle, and we have to find where we fit. Yes, sir, Joe.
Quick silly question. Are projectors and coordinators the same thing?
Correct. It's just a different name. And the
Okay, I didn't
reason
know
I
that.
use both is because Raw had names for things, and 64 Keys has changed some of those names. And when I very first came into human design, uh, I was a little bit peeved about that. I already have enough to do. Why do I have to learn two sets of names for what the different types are? But in general, it really is only for the types. And the more I got used to it, the more I realized there is actually a really good reason. On the 64 keys side, the reason for that is 64 keys. By the way, it's a lovely program. I absolutely recommend it. Way better than any American program I have ever seen. It gives way more information for free than any American program I have ever seen. So if you want to, go look at them. But I have learned how to do it right by doing it wrong. And I can tell you, the Americans do not have the corner on the human design market. It's at 64 keys with a couple of Austrians. So the Austrians put together 64 keys in order to be able to facilitate their business practices, because they are trying in Europe to coordinate and assemble corporations and large businesses with everyone being in their proper place, which is where the world actually would do well to follow. And in order to do that, they had to frame human design in terms of less this weirdo guy receiving this weirdo information and more, how is it practical? How can we make it work? What's a name we can put on it that someone can hear that and immediately know who they are? Because if I say I'm a generator or a manifesting generator, ew, what does that really mean to the average Joe? It's Raw's shock and awe campaign. And uh, I think the guy was very intelligent and inspired in this case. but I don't worship him. I don't think he was a god. He made mistakes. I think that there were some places where there's some interpretational room. And it's also a point that every single one, as far as I can tell, with the possible exception of Linda Bunnell, every single one of his students who studied with Ra took that information, broke off a chunk of it, and said, let's go in this direction away from that. So now we have human design fracturing into all these pieces. And then it becomes a little bit of a Wild West dynamic because who knows what pieces they're taking, what pieces they're leaving. And it's a little bit like, oh, okay, what is their motivation? Is their motivation to make money, or is their motivation to help spur the evolution of the whole entire planet as one? And I got to tell you, that is my motivation. So I do have to earn a living, and I think that that's fine. I think specialists deserve to earn a living off of human design. But I also think that there are definitely people out there who are taking advantage of people who do not have the knowledge. There are lots and lots of people out there giving readings for $300 a piece or more and giving less information to people than I give in a 15-minute reading at a MeWe fair. That's a lot of money to pay for not a lot of information. And so I think it's really important that we evaluate our teachers in terms of what is their underlying motivation for teaching this. So I can definitely talk more about that. There was something I wanted to swing around to here. And let's see, we talked about the language. It'll come back to me, or it wasn't that important. So moving on. Not every human design student needs to learn the entire system of human design. We don't need the whole entire world understanding the depths. Oh, that's where I was going. We need specialists. It's too complicated. It's too much. If you think about it, all these systems that come into human design and support it, for example, the I Ching. The I Ching is complicated enough all by itself that you could spend your whole life studying the I Ching and not get to the bottom of it, and that's just one of the elements. You could spend your whole life doing astrology, and a human design is much bigger than astrology. So we do need our specialists, and I think that the laborer is worthy of her hire, but I do also think that sometimes the laborer is a little bit greedy and squeezing. So I'm always trying to make sure that uh, while I'm making sure that I can buy groceries, you also can buy groceries after you're done with me. You know what I'm saying? So there's no judgment in human design. So sometimes because of our societal mores, we think that one design or one piece of a design or more definition as opposed to less definition is better. No, that is not so. I thought it too when I started. I thought, oh, I only have 5 centers, but actually, that's just fine. I really, really love my open centers, and I do kind of sometimes wish I was more open. And we will in this class have the opportunity to compare how those things go, specifically because we have a coordinator here. It's Heather, who is very heavily defined. She's a 7 and 2, which means she has 7 of the 9 centers receiving constant energy. By way of contrast, we have Sergio, who only has 2 defined and 7 open. So these two coordinators, while they are on the surface the same type, we'll find they have vastly different experiences, vastly different capabilities, and vastly different kinds of wisdom that they can give in different times and different places. And I don't know about our third coordinator, but we'll get there. Okay, another important piece of human design is to go at it with open-minded skepticism. Okay, we have to be open-minded enough to take in new ideas, consider them, evaluate them, give them a chance for a second, or as I like to say, give them enough rope to hang themselves. But we also have to be a little bit skeptical. Otherwise, we're in danger of being taken for a ride. We're vulnerable to being, it's not hacked, but it's to being scammed. and we don't need anybody to be scammed. Human design is a system that stands up for itself. Hello, hello. Oh, that's cute. And it has to stand by itself. It has to be practical. It has to work for the people who look at it. And that's what I love about it, because I have not yet found anyone for whom it does not apply. So go ahead and try to prove me wrong. Let's see if you can. But so far, the system works very, very well to describe and help us understand who it is that we are. And that's that's what's doing it for me. It's not a matter of belief, it's a matter of seeing it work over and over again. And more importantly, seeing it work in me. And I will tell you examples out of my life where I looked at my design and I thought, no, 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 definitely no. And I scrambled through my day looking for a time where this was not my definition. There wasn't a time. It was just that I was so incredibly broken in this spot that I just had no idea that that was me. And the more I began to learn about that and sit down in myself and realize, oh, okay, I'm meant to wait. I'm a manifesting generator. There's nothing I want more than to go, do it. Let's go. Yeah, that's just not going to work for me. It's never worked for me. That's how I got a reputation of accosting people, going out to them on the street and saying, "You'll never believe the information I have. I could save your life. I've got so much I can tell you." And people just go, "Crazy lady. Oh, she's a freak. Oh, get me away." And it's back to that genius to freak energy I was telling you about. So I've been a freak for a long time. And I'm ready to flip that script and sit down in who I am and really become the powerful genius who speaks. That's my cross, the cross of explanation. So when I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I am explaining. And that's why I'm here. So there we go. Let's see. Open-minded skepticism. We also at some point have to learn to live gracefully with uncertainty. And it's just a fact. Even if we knew every single thing about our charts, even if you know exactly the moment, much less the minute that you emerged from your mother's body, there are still things that we just don't know. And what's more, going into the future, none of us really know what is coming for us in the future. And this is making for a lot of fear and uncertainty in the world. And part of what I'm about is giving us enough knowledge so that we can know, hey, it's all right. It's okay. Human design does give us some information about what's coming. And maybe I'll teach a class about that later on. But for now, I can tell you, wow, mind blowing. We are on the edge of a huge global energetic shift. I mean, kind of everybody knows that just from how we're feeling in the world. Everything's upset, there's crisis and unrest everywhere. But people who are doing what I call their homework, which I think it's sort of known in the community, doing your work, being self-reflective, trying to become more mature, getting therapy, healing in some kind of way. The people who are on this journey for themselves are seeing that our planet is moving someplace. We are on the edge of a big shift. It's just that not many of us have information about what that shift is for. And that shift is holding, I can tell you, some changes that are unbelievable, frankly, just unbelievable. And I can talk later about how I know what's, coming in a general way, but even then, it's only general. We really at some point have to decide to look at the future with grace, accept that we're not going to know everything about what's coming, that we're not going to know everything about everything. But human design is actually a huge step towards knowing a lot about a lot. So, like I said, for all of you who feel insecure without foundational knowledge, i.e., those of you who have a lot of ones in your design or even a one in your profile, you will have experienced for yourself in one way or another that you are just not comfortable in this world without foundational knowledge. And that is what human design is. It is foundational knowledge. It's something upon which you can rely when you go out into the world and try to understand how it works. Human design gives us a framework to understand not only ourselves, but other people and what's happening on the planet. So it's pretty cool. Very important information for all of us to have. All right. Okay. I am not seeing, and maybe I'm not seeing anything here, where people are putting their emails in the chat. So let me remind you, if you have not posted your email, uh, please post your emails. Let's be friends. Let's not work off of a basis of fear. Let's get together so that we can communicate and be friends and support each other, because really human design is a whole lot easier to do when you have friends. Uh, I did it with very few friends, and I'm telling you, it's much easier if you have more. Now that I have more, I am seeing that my progress is actually moving faster. And I'm hoping that I can help you guys to decondition and move faster into this sense of yourselves than you would if you were trying to hack at this alone and you didn't have anybody to talk to about it. So, I think I am ready to start taking questions. So, why don't we do that? Click the little hand button and I will take questions and we can talk about what's going on in generalities. We will start into the deep dive of the basics next week. So, questions, anyone? Betty. Yeah. Yes,
On
Betty.
you.
There we
Oh,
go.
can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay. I was wondering, you were talking about waiting for the time, especially if you're a generator. Is that right? Where you wait for the opportunity, but it just seems kind of nebulous in terms of waiting. And I'm kind of like have so much energy like every day until like 10 p.m. where I pretty much fall asleep. But I have so much energy. So isn't that kind of a contradiction?
Right, right. So let
You know
me
what I
give
mean?
you a little more information about that.
Yeah.
Waiting is for generators, it's not so much waiting because that's more of a manifesting generator kind of tool. But I do have to say there are levels of the thing. So when I say waiting, or in terms of straight generators, acting in response, a lot of times generators have this response of, you've got to be kidding me. I can't just sit on my butt and wait for somebody to come up to me and say, do you want to live? And I say in response to that, it's a nuance, it's a refinement. And the refinement is all of the types can do their daily things according to their own strategy, according to whatever the heck you want to do. So you don't need human design to make breakfast, right? You can make what you want for breakfast. But if you get to the larger level, slightly larger, of, I like to use the example of, you've planned a day of errands. You're running errands, you got to get gas, you got to get groceries. Uh, does it matter which one you get first? Well, if you're a generator, it actually does. It does matter which one you get first. Can you do it wrong? Absolutely. But if you're learning, these situations where it doesn't really matter which one you do first are an excellent way to begin testing your authority as a generator, because you don't have an emotional attachment to what you do. So it's a wonderful opportunity to ask yourself, do I feel like getting groceries first? Do I feel like getting gas first? Oh, okay. Go get gas first. And what you will find is that in the process of getting gas, you'll see the right people. You'll pass the right people. One time when I made these decisions and I went to get gas first, blew my mind. I met my daughter at the gas station. I was dancing. I do a weird thing at the gas station where I get out and dance because everybody's locked in there anyway. So I'm out there dancing. All of a sudden, my daughter walks up to me and she's like, Mom, I love you. You're crazy, but I do love that. It was because I went dancing at the gas station before I went to get groceries. I can tell these stories. So, in one way, it matters. I can talk about that in terms of the G center and our native geometry, our specific location in time and space. When it comes to our projectors or coordinators, there's a level at which they don't have the guidance that we have as builders or generators. They're kind of left left there. And my daughter, who was also a coordinator, said to me once, I wish I was a generator. I wish I had that knowing what to do right now. I'm just sitting here. I don't know what to do with my life. I can't spend my life just waiting for an invitation from somebody. And my response is, on some level, you can. And while you're waiting, you get to do whatever you want. Make breakfast, dance, climb a rock, sing a song, do what makes you happy, and wait for an invitation. So we're talking about levels of decision. For important things, absolutely. You're going to have much more success if you're following how your design is meant to make you work. On the small levels of I wake up in the morning and I have a lot of energy, well, use it. That's your power as a builder of this planet to go out and use that energy. It's your job to find the most delicious way to use that energy and then use it.
Oh,
But
Rebecca, oh, sorry, Rebecca, to interrupt here, but are you saying that as a generator or all of us that because I've always felt in my life that I have to do what I love. And of course, I had work and obligations and duties that wasn't totally what I wanted, but I knew what I wanted in the end. And I had to, like you said, self-reflect and all the, spiritual work.
Mhm.
But I always feel that when I do what I love, of course, it's just so much better. But is that what you're saying too? That you have to find what you love, right? Because if that energy is so abundant, then why not, right?
Yes, on some level, it's about that. And if you've had the kind of a life where you were able to largely or even in part do what you love and want to do, you're a very lucky human. Many people do not get that opportunity. They're really, in one way or another, placed into a life of continual slavery or what's worse, super slavery. Uh, but there are levels of it. And no matter how much freedom that you have had in the past, once you start to recognize what's actually yours and lean on it, and then release your addiction, because it's really, we're addicted to being who we're not. Once we learn to release those addictions and let go trying to be who we're not, we will all find that our lives flow more easily. So it gets better, is what I'm saying. And you'll see it working on all kinds of levels. You'll see it working on big levels and on little levels. And if you haven't burned out yet, congratulations. You are rare indeed. I certainly have burned out, probably twice. Um, so it's a matter of learning the nuance as we get into the details and we talk about what is sacral authority, how can we follow it, what does it mean to be a generator, then we can answer that question a little bit better about how do I wrangle this? Because in the beginning of human design, you're looking at a difficult picture where somebody's telling you, oh, this is the beautiful potential of who you're supposed to be. And you're looking at it and going, what am I supposed to do? Walk away from my job right now? Am I supposed to just say, I don't feel like going to work and let the hospitals empty of nurses? How can I do that? And the answer is that it's a slow and gradual process. Ra said over and over again that deconditioning takes 7 years, but truly the answer is we are always in the process of deconditioning. It is my personal belief that Ra never actually fully deconditioned himself. And that is why he died so much younger than he had anticipated. So it's 7 years for the first cycle. After 7 years, Ross said he noticed a large change in people, and that was that they were able to relax. So just imagine that. After 7 years, and that's 7 years of conscious trying to address your design. It's not, I had a reading 7 years ago. It's working with it and trying to understand it and trying to be who you really are. You can take a breath and relax. I was telling Deidre about a quote I just saw where someone said they would give anything in the world to drink one single cup of coffee as themselves. And I thought, yeah, exactly. Isn't that something that would be cool for all of us to have an absolute knowledge, not just a good day, but an absolute knowledge that you are being your best self, to sit in the center of the universe and go, ah, it's all me. Everything. I created all of you. You were all here on my planet. Here I am at the center of my universe, and it's cool here. I like it here. When we do that, we're feeling for one brief moment the beauty of what we're supposed to be feeling all the time, this joy in being alive. And that's partly why I'm the Jolly Alchemist, because it's about joy, it's about goodness, it's about fun. Let's play, let's have a good time, and let's learn how to be who we are. Any other questions? Come on, don't tell me I've explained it all that well. Sergio, what do you got?
All right, can you hear me, Rebecca? Okay. When you talk, well, I have a bunch of questions, but I'll keep it short. When you talk about human design for the planet, rocks, I find that incredibly fascinating,
Mhm.
because it goes beyond the human being and it starts to talk about other systems and then by virtue subsystems. What are we going to learn about that to a larger or lesser degree?
Certainly
Um,
not in this class.
yeah, can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, just a little.
Okay.
In your
Oh my
book,
gosh. Wait.
Sergio, the Linda Bonnell book. Oh, yes, sorry, you had something more to say?
I think they just have multiple mics close to each other that need to be turned off. Otherwise, you get the echo that keeps happening.
Ah, Sergio, you're still muted.
Yeah, it's good to go. You're good to go.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
Do you want me to say again what I was saying about
Yeah,
the
if you could,
form?
if you
Yeah,
could,
no
I'm so
problem.
sorry.
Yeah, I didn't really say much, so it's all good. So I will not be explaining in great detail what's going on in the form of other things. We can talk about it, sure, briefly, but just so that you know, in Linda Bonnell's book, which you have a copy of, there is in the back a listing where he gives the forms of all these things he received. So we can know, for example, that rocks and dirt, they only have an activation in the 25th gate. That is the gate of innocence. So all of our rocks are innocent. Isn't that kind of sweet? And that's also an energy that you in particular are carrying in your body. Surin also carries that energy. I believe Heather has the 25th gate as well. And I don't know the specifics about everybody else at this moment, but it's a lovely energy. It's about no matter how many times you're shocked, no matter what happens to you, whether you're thrown in a volcano or thrown on the bottom of the ocean, you still retain this sort of bubbliness to your personality of maybe next time it'll be better. Maybe it'll be okay. It's sort of the ability to pick yourself up. And I had a good friend once who espoused the idea of re-virginalizing. She said, yeah, it's been long enough since I had sex. Pretty sure I'm back to being a virgin. It's kind of like that. So that's the design of rocks. And then as they get more complicated, you get more and more structure happening. And in 2027, when we start to have these new children being born, they will have a structure that is a level of complication more on top of what we have now. They will have 10 centers, and some channels are going to break and some things are going to reorganize, and it's going to be freaky. So buckle up.
All righty, thank you. I've always felt like a great, I don't know why, my people come from the desert. And so there's a lot of rocks and the desert, right? And I don't know, it's always, I've always loved mountains and rocks, even though I'm not a rock climber or anything like that. So that's really beautiful. See, that's another reason why I really dig human design. It's really, really cool. So anyway, I look forward to more discussions
Yeah.
regarding that. Thank you,
Nature in
Rebecca.
general is a great deconditioning force, and walking in nature, whether it's trees or rocks, is a great comfort to many, many humans. And actually, I recommend it for everyone because in the forest, all those things, they do have activations. So even if you're not seeing them, the animals and their activations work together to complete your design, to give you a feeling of wholeness. And this is part of what's happening when we're feeling good from just having gotten out into the forest and into nature. Nature is actually feeding and supporting us on an electrical level, and so are animals. Sometimes when we have a split definition, our pet hamster or our pet dog has that activation. And when we're with that animal, we are feeling in some level whole in a way that we can't because they're allowing our electricity to flow. And that's also an explanation for why we become so bonded with them and why it's so hard for us to lose them. Any other questions? I can't believe this is so easy. Thank you for the heart, Betty. All right. Do you have anything else you want to ask Sarah Jo? I know whenever I'm in a learning meeting, I seem to always have more questions than other people. And since we have time, we've got time for another one if you got it. Okay, that's fine. Um, let's see here.
You want to maybe give a quick overview of what some of the other class topics might be? Just a real quick thing, is that?
Yeah, well, I guess not everybody has gotten the email that's talked about what's going on. So I don't have that email in front of me, but let me just talk in generalities about what we have coming ahead of us. Um, I've split it into pieces that in some ways seem artificial because human design is so interconnected. And also because this is the first time I'm teaching this class, I'm not sure how well I can separate and only speak about centers or only speak about channels. But it's an idea. We'll see how it goes. I think what I would actually like to do is start working off of the cheat sheet. So it'll be with, I think, talking about the types. In fact, let's start there with the types. And this does remind me of something I did want to say today, and that is about the types. Ra received information in one big bushel that just poured all over him. And then he was faced with the problem of, okay, how do I share this with the world? And when he did that, he decided to split it himself into types, knowing as he did, people love to be put in a box, people love to categorize themselves. And so it was sometime later that he actually invented the types. Invented is kind of a big word, but he decided, okay, humanity is a spectrum. So everybody's different, but there are some things that make some designs more like each other than others. And he decided to base it off of their energetic patterns. Who is it that has this creative energy? Let's call them the creators. They are powerhouses. They're energizer bunnies. Let's call them generators because he saw them as generating energy. Generators do generate energy, but when somebody says to me, I'm a generator, if I don't know human design, the first thing I think is the ear motor we're going to put gas in. It doesn't actually say a whole lot. And that is why 64 Keys has changed it to be builder. Builder, at least, is a descriptive word that lets you know a little bit about your place in the world and what you're supposed to be doing with your life. You're supposed to be building, making, doing, creating, doing the stuff. All the stuff that gets done on Earth is pretty much being done by builders or by generator or coordinators, projectors who think that they need to be builders. But that's a matter of conditioning and not what they're really supposed to be doing. Because 70% of the planet, and that's a big majority, are these generator types, either a straight generator or a manifesting generator. But for the purposes of type, a generator is a generator. And I don't care how fast you're running, still, you're at base a generator. So I'm a fast generator. but there's good and bad parts to that. It's not all roses, I got to tell you. And the other 30%, which is our projectors, coordinators, our manifestors or initiators, and our reflectors or observers, these people do their functions working from the energy of the generators. So we as generators, we feed you. And it happens to be my opinion that in the future, we should physically feed you as well as energetically feed you. I think it should be that the 70% support the 30%. But that's just me. Until the world changes to the way I want to see it, you projector coordinator types still have to find a way to make some money. So there's that. But the point that I'm trying to make is that on some level, these distinctions between the types are artificial distinctions. And within each type, there's still a massive amount of variety. So we'll talk about what makes a generator, what makes a coordinator, what makes a manifester, and most freaky of all, what makes a reflector. Oh, they've got very interesting charts. And when I get back to teaching from my own little marketplace, my little basement, you will see that behind me is a wall of charts. And then we'll be able to look at that and say right there, okay, here's an example of this, here's an example of that. And I'll be able to show you on a chalkboard kind of a way, living examples of what's going on. But for now, it's okay to talk in generalities and to know that there are massive differences, and those massive differences do not always come from the information itself, but rather Ra's interpretation. And whenever you're talking about somebody, anybody, interpreting information they have received, you must in some ways take into account the receiver, because the receiver is always acting with a bit of distortion. And I happen to think that Ra was, in general, a very good receiver. He had a huge job to take this whole entire descending of information on him and make it into bite-sized chunks. But you got to know on some level that part of that is Ra and part of that is the information itself. And there's a little bit of gray area where those overlap sometimes. So we'll get into it, but it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm very excited to get into it. But yeah, I think I will start with the body graph as a whole. So I don't think that's next on the list, but I do think that that's probably a nice overarching way to start diving in rather than to say, okay, these are the types. Well, I don't know. I'll let you know very soon, maybe either tonight or tomorrow, so that you can start to do your own research and prepare. If you already have a copy of Linda Bonnell's book, you can begin to read on whichever one it is that's going to be the next one, and prepare yourself for the discussion that we will have so that you can get the most out of what's happening in this class. Alrighty. Anything else, anyone? Is there something in your charts that really is horribly confrontational or difficult? Well, I can speak about Deidre. Hopefully everyone knows their exact birth time. Deidre is an example of one of those people who doesn't and is slightly handicapped in learning human design because of that. And I have to say, I also am one of those people. I do not know for a certain surety exactly when I was born, but I have been spending the last 4 years trying to figure it out the hard way. And at some point I realized, oh, Jacob also does not know at this point what time he was born. It makes the job a little bit harder, but at some point I realized that part of the reason that that was happening for me was because I needed to be able to do it the hard way so I could help other people do it the hard way. Because there are still plenty of people on this planet who do not know their birth time. And for those of you who do know your exact birth time or think you know your exact birth time, I have to say, having given birth I still always put a 5-minute window around the birth time, knowing the nature of hospitals exactly. And men, when I gave birth to my first child, uh, they said, "Oh, let's call it 10:30." And I thought, "Call it 10:30?" Nobody was looking at that. I didn't even know human design, but I thought that's a kind of a janky way to run a system here, but mm, it's an old system and it doesn't really work all that well. So even if somebody has told you you were born at 3:13, I don't know, there's still room to search about the details of that on the lower level. However, if somebody has given you an exact time like that, there's a better chance that it's more correct. And it's certainly enough that you can get a really, really good picture of all kinds of things, including the best way for your body to eat, the best location for your body to live. All these under the line things that are the super advanced part of human design, those all require a really exact birth time. So if you think you know your time, you still have to go down beneath the line. And I can show you how in 64 keys, when we start getting into it, how we look at that, how we see what those possible changes are. And even if we think we know our time, to begin to titrate. They said it was 3:13. I think it was more like 3:15 kind of a thing. And there is also a thing in astrology called a chart rectification. So if you don't know your chart and you want to go about it as easy as possible without chewing on it for 4 years like I did, then you can go to an astrologer, and it takes not any astrologer, a really knowledgeable, well-versed astrologer, and you give them this huge complicated list of when you were born, when you went to school, when you were married, when you broke your leg, any significant times in your life. And from that, they can begin to narrow in and reconstruct when within the day you were born. So it's not to be assumed that if the hospital said it's X time, that it really is X time, but it's certainly much closer than your mother saying, "I gave birth in the day." So there's that. Or worse, your mother lying to you. So, anything else? Because I have energy and I sort of planned that I would have the floor open for questions until 7:30. But if you guys are feeling tired and like you've had enough information for today, it's okay with me. We can end the session for today. Okay. Somebody would like to hear a little bit about neutrinos. This is a good topic for today. So neutrinos, this is where we're getting into quantum physics now. Physics in general is really what it is, but yeah, quantum physics specifically. When you're looking at the construction of the universe, the bittiest particles that we know of so far, okay, are called neutrinos. So they're just as tiny as can be, almost theoretical. They're so tiny. And there was a time, a long time, that between discovering what these little particles were and how they did that was they were starting to measure the weight of particles, of neutrons, protons, electrons, atoms, molecules, and calculating the weight of the entire universe. And when they did this calculation, they realized, uh, we're only coming up with a vastly smaller number than we should. It's like 10% of what they thought it should be. So they said, oh, we've got 90% of everything that is something we can't see, can't feel. It's a teeny witsy particle, and it looks like it doesn't even have mass. It's just dark matter. Like they say, junk DNA. It's kind of like the junk stuff in the universe, or ether. And when Ra received his information in the beginning of 1987, he received the information, and this was always a big point with him. The neutrinos do actually have mass and thus are able to carry infinitesimal amounts of information. That's the important bit. And it was not actually verified by the scientists for almost another decade. I think it was like 1985 or 95 that the scientists finally came out and said, "We've discovered neutrinos have mass." And he was like, "Ha ha, I knew." So, okay, there's that. But what happens is neutrinos are being emitted by stars and there's a little bit by other things, but it's not really that important. The important thing to know is that mostly it's stars. They're emitting these bitsy particles, and there's gazillions of them. I don't remember the number. I can never remember the number. I don't really care to remember the number. It's just so big. It's like billions per second per square inch. So a lot. In fact, so many that he called it a sea of neutrinos. He said we're sailing the neutrino seas. So, our greatest source of neutrino energy on this planet comes from our very own sun. And that is why what I call the top four, which is the top two conscious and top two unconscious definitions that we have, actually are able to describe approximately 70% of our personality. Because so many of our neutrinos that are conditioning us are actually coming from the sun. But there are neutrinos coming from lots of other places. And with this tiny bit of mass they have as they pass through things like planets, I like to use Mars for an example. A neutrino that's coming, say, from Alpha Centauri, just random example. If it passes through Mars, while it's passing through Mars, it's picking up a tiny bit of a Martian flavor. Rod described it as a car, a white car, a red car. If they hit each other, then there's going to be a little white paint on the red car and a little red paint on the white car. So there's a little bit of transfer of information. Similarly, when those neutrinos coming from wherever, if they've passed through Mars on their way to us or not, they're going to give that information to these meat sacks we live in and give them some sort of an imprint or a definition or an energy signature upon which we can rely in our entire lives because it doesn't change. So no matter what happens in the places where you have color in your chart, those are places where you have energy that will not change for the whole course of your life, so you can depend on it. And then we have all the other things. The neutrinos that imprinted on you, as I said, they're always happening. They're happening today. They're happening every minute. Every time you go to 64 Keys and you see that home page there, it will have on the side of the chart, before you even go in to look at who you are, a body graph. And that body graph is showing the neutrino energy that's hitting the planet at any given moment. And you can also change that within human design to say, what was the neutrino field like on the day that I had a car crash, or the day I got married, or the day I gave birth to someone else, or the day my sister was born, or my best friend Joey, whatever. You can go and you can look at the energies that were moving in the planet at any given time. So that's a really cool thing that we have as a resource, and it's all coming from neutrinos. So in our bodies, we have two kinds of things. We have neutrinos that have given us an imprint that's permanent forever, and then we have our open centers where we are basically receptors or super receptors for, we have these sensitive, what's the word? Yeah, I guess receptor is the best word for it. We have these sensitive receptors to the energy that's going on around us because in those places we can tell the difference between on and off. Ra talked all the time about our world being a duality. In fact, he went so far as to call it a biverse instead of a universe, meaning everything is about duality. All of our definitions, what we're defined in, what we're not defined in, every single center, every gate, every channel, there's a duality. There's this end and that end. There's what he called the it's not enlightened, it's human design calls it shadow and light, I believe. But he called it detriment and it's an E word, not enhancement. It'll come to me. But basically, he was saying, even within our definition, there's still a range. So this range and all the things that we have going on at the base, They're caused by neutrinos. So, how do we feel, folks? Is that enough? Any questions? Want more? Okay. Well, if there's nothing else going on, I suggest that we stop the recording. And then if anyone wants to speak on a more comfortable and personal level, then we can hang out and chat for a little bit. Or if you want to go, then goodbye, and we'll see you next week. I'll send you the meeting link for next week. And also very soon, either tonight or tomorrow, I will send a little bit more information about where we're going. But you also have, in the meantime, homework of watching Encounter with the Voice if you haven't, watching The Egg if you haven't, and going to 64keys.com and getting a free account, putting in your information and starting to examine, because there's a lot of things.